The year 2020 was a tough time for many of us, as in my previous top 10 I talked about the worst games released, but now let's flip the subject and talk about the best games that were released during the year 2020. So without further ado, hello guys, my name is Hepodix and I hope you enjoy the video. At number 10 spot we have Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, a platformer battle royale game made by Mediatonic that was released on August 4th, 2020 and is available for PC, PS4, Android and iOS. This game takes a funny twist on a battle royale genre, as up to 60 players will compete in different courses in order to progress, as some of them track your result individually and some modes require teamwork for you to get through. The characters are represented as jelly bean-like figures, and the world of Fall Guys is very colorful with bright colors, and the atmosphere overall gives a very happy feeling to the players. If you enjoyed shows like Takeshi's Castle, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout is the closest you can get to a video game adaptation, and it's very enjoyable, especially with friends, and there are different events all the time, which adds to the variety and longevity of this game. Next at number 9 spot we have a game developed by Moon Studios, Ori and Will of the Wisps, that was released on March 11th, 2020 and is available for Switch, Xbox One, Series X and PC. This is a sequel to the Ori and the Blind Forest that came out in March 11th, 2015, exactly 5 years ago from its sequel, and it does not disappoint at all. Ori is a platform adventure Metroidvania game where your journey is not linear, but instead you need to travel to different areas in order to obtain new abilities and upgrades for you to proceed. Ori can jump, climb, glide and swim between various platforms to solve different puzzles, and the gameplay overall is really well executed once you get to know the mechanics and everything. I really also like how this game is visually presented with the new 3-dimensional models played in multi-layered backgrounds, even though the actual gameplay is 2D, as well as the soundtrack is pretty good too, so for all of the Metroidvania fans out there, Ori and Will of the Wisps is a must-try game. In number 8 spot we have Hades, a roguelike action role-playing game developed by Supergiant Games that was released on September 17th, 2020 and is available for PC, Mac and Switch. You play as the Zagreus, the prince of the underworld, who is on a quest to escape his dispassionate father, Hades, and to reach Mount Olympus. The game is presented in an isometric view, as you will run through a number of rooms to defeat enemies, and the combat is purely hack and slash inspired, which I personally think works very well in this setting. Over the course of time you will gain better weaponry, as well as support from other Olympians, such as Eurydice and Patroclus, so there are a lot of inspiration taken from Greek mythology as well. Without spoiling any further, Hades is a great hack and slash experience, and it even received twice the Best Indie Game of the Year award, so it's therefore no doubt one of the best games of 2020. At number 7 spot, let's talk about a game made by Nintendo, Animal Crossing New Horizons, that is exclusively available for Switch and was released on March 20th, 2020. It's a life simulation game where you explore the island in non-linear fashion, and depending on the time of the year, there are different activities and events presented to the player, which adds to the overall variety. You need to gather and craft items and do other activities such as catch insects and fish, as your goal is to develop the island into a community of animals who behave and talk just like humans do. It's a well-received sequel for the Animal Crossing franchise, getting few awards as a result, and therefore it earns the 7th spot in this list. Moving to number 6 spot, we have the September 4th, 2020 release called Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 that was developed by Vicarious Visions and is available for PC, PS4 and Xbox One. It's basically a remaster of the first 2 Tony Hawk Pro Skater games that were released in 1999 and 2000, and oh boy, it sure is a good remaster at that. You play in a third-person view with its gameplay catered towards classic arcade games, as you will travel to various locations to do different tasks, such as getting a high score or collecting certain objects. But there are other additions more than just a graphical overhaul, as the game features tricks featured in later entries. I'm just glad this wasn't another blunder within the Tony Hawk's franchise like the 5th entry was. Ugh. I also really enjoy the inclusion of creating your own skater and park, and there are multiplayer options available too, both in online and local, which adds to the gameplay variety too, and therefore Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 deserves the 6th spot in this list. At number 5 spot, we have a long-awaited sequel for the original Crash trilogy, Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time, developed by Toys for Bob, that was released on October 2nd, 2020 and is available for PS4 and Xbox One. The plot follows Crash Bandicoot and Coco, who are aided by their former enemy Dingodile and Crash's old girlfriend Tawna, as they have to recover the all-powerful quantum masks to prevent Cortex and Entropy from enslaving the universe. Alongside the traditional Crash gameplay, It's About Time adds new elements too, such as the use of quantum masks that can alter levels and overcome obstacles, as well as additional game modes for replaying levels, and the inclusion of 3 new playable characters, Tawna, Dingodile and Cortex, which do have their unique gameplay and levels too. I can appreciate the fact that Toys for Bob tried to innovate something new with the series without overcomplicating things too much, and Crash 4 was received favorably by critics and fans and thus takes the 5th spot in this list. Moving to number 4 spot, we have id Software's Doom Eternal that was released for PC, PS4, Stadia and Xbox One on March 20th, 2020, for Switch in December 8th, 2020, and the PS5 and Xbox Series X versions are coming in 2021. It's a sequel to the 2016 adaptation of Doom, as players again takes the role of the Doomslayer, who fights the demonic forces of hell from a first-person perspective. You are encouraged to play aggressive due to the game's nature as you engage enemies, acquire health, ammo and armor in order to survive, but as the game goes further, you need to strategize in some situations as well. There are new additions to Doom Eternal, such as the hub area called Fortress of Doom, new movement mechanics and many other things to keep old fans and newcomers interested, and therefore is no doubt one of the best 2020 games out there.
The Slayer's time is now.
Next at number 3 spot, we have a game that I already talked about in my top 10 stealth games video, The Last of Us Part 2, made by Naughty Dog, that was released on June 19th, 2020 and is available for the PlayStation 4. It's a praised sequel for the original The Last of Us, as the story continues 5 years after the events of the first game. You control 2 characters, Ellie and Abby, in a post-apocalyptic USA, as each of them provide unique motives for them to continue forward. The Last of Us Part 2 is an action-adventure game played from a third-person perspective, and this works very well for the survivor horror atmosphere. The gameplay involves sneaking, as well as combat where you can use firearms and improvised weapons to fight human enemies and cannibalistic creatures. It is a great sequel nonetheless, gaining many game awards and is therefore no doubt one of the best 2020 games in the market. At number 2 spot, let's talk about Half-Life Alyx, developed by Valve, that was released for PC on March 23rd, 2020 and Linux on May 15th, 2020. After over a decade, we didn't get Half-Life 2 Episode 3 nor Half-Life 3, but instead a prequel that takes place 5 years before the events of Half-Life 2. Half-Life Alyx is a virtual reality game that takes place before the return of Gordon Freeman, as you control Alex Vance, who allies alongside his father Ellie Vance to fight Combine, which is an alien empire that has conquered the Earth. The gameplay itself is a very solid FPS experience, but the main difference is that it's a VR game, and Valve really nailed this different approach, as Half-Life Alyx has been cited as VR's first killer app, winning 2 VR awards as well, and thus more than deserves the 2nd spot in this list.
Hey, wait, no! welcome. Avalanche, I presume.
The top spot for the best 2020 game for me goes to Final Fantasy VII Remake, developed by Square Enix, that was released on April 10th, 2020 and is available for the PS4. The original Final Fantasy VII is a big part of my childhood, and waiting for this remake felt like an eternity, but it finally came and I was blown away by the results. The plot revolves around Cloud Strife, who is a former Shinra soldier, but upon discovering that Shinra drains the planet's life energy, he decides to join the eco-terrorist group Avalanche in order to fight Shinra back. The gameplay isn't your typical role-playing format like the original was. Instead, it uses active time battle system, where you can move freely and do your attacks and cast magic, which is an alright change, and the battle system reminds me a lot of how Kingdom Hearts series executes its battling. The only downside I have for this game is that it only covers the first section of the original game, aka the Midgar section, but the graphics, voice acting, remastered soundtrack and all the rest combined are still quite breathtaking, and therefore I think the Final Fantasy VII Remake deserves the first spot in my list.
Cloud, there's still so much to be done.
Okay, so that concludes the top 10 best games of 2020 list. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please like this video as it helps me to grow, and subscribe and hit the notification bell for more great gaming related top 10 videos to come. Let me know in the comments what you think is the best 2020 game, and with all that said, thanks for watching, my name is Hepodix and have a nice day.